The thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I think we can get here, we'll just see where it goes, because you and I talked about this last season. I actually think it's a very interesting point now. We've texted a little bit about this season, but not that much. But that is year 2 of the Deion Sanders experience. They are 3-1. It is a little bit of a shaky 3-1, but it is 3-1 nonetheless. I'm curious about this part. Before we even get to the football, does the energy, obviously the energy around it doesn't feel the same as when they were on like the cover of Sports Illustrated and stuff like that. But do people still care about what's going on down there with Colorado and Deion? I can't tell. I haven't seen the TV numbers. It doesn't feel the same, but I think you're a little more connected with the people that was on it when it first got popping.
The people that care still care. And I know that sounds like a non-answer, but let me tell you what I mean.
No, I get you.
The real way that you know that the heat behind something has evaporated is when the people that cared didn't care anymore. I'm not talking about everybody else who had this cultural curiosity about Colorado or college football or Deion Sanders or any of that stuff. I'm not talking about that. Those people probably weren't in it for the long haul anyway. But the people that last year decided that they cared about Deion, those people still seem to care. Because if you have conversations and criticisms around Colorado's program that are anything less than glowing, those are the people that you still hear from, right? And look, what happened at Baylor this past week, that is part of college football. For everyone else that wants to write that off as not a legitimate win, in college football, the way this game is played, you sometimes get out of one of those small towns just having made one more play than your opponent. It happens. Right. And there was a lot of excitement for it and all of that. I will say the periphery of everything, the Sports Center features from Boulder, the who's who of this and all of that, that has sort of changed, and it will change because no one wants to be connected to something that's anything less than successful.
Right. I wonder what it'll take for it to come back, right? Because they're 3-1, and you're right about the Baylor game. Sometimes it is just about making one more play. Now, there are two arguments to be made here. One, Baylor stinks. But
that was
the other
all-time terrible loss.
Yeah. And they're not generally good. Like that's the kind of game that gets coaches fired. And Aranda, in the end, this may be a thing that gets him fired. But
right.
I think, and this is where I give Colorado credit this year, they got destroyed by Nebraska. That was full on embarrassing, and it's one thing for them to lose games like that in year 1. It's another thing for them to lose that in year 2, and you have a guy that people think might be the best quarterback in America. You got a dude that people think is the best player in America. No matter what your depth is hitting on, losing like that to a team with a freshman quarterback who's pretending to be a black person while not pretending to be black. It's a very interesting thing that Rayola's got going there. He's threading the needle in a very particular way. But to get smoked like that was all bad, but I gave them credit because they got back up, and that was the Colorado State Super Bowl, and they went out there and they handled them boys. And it's not that Colorado State is great. That's not my point. They came back after a loss against an opponent that you know was locked in to beat them, and they handled business. And then they stood tall in that Baylor game to win in the end. Even last year, a lot of those games where they were down early, they never quit. They played 4 quarters of football. Like, that's why I give them credit. I also don't know if they're going to win another game this year. I really don't, because they're not good.
I don't know if they're going to win another game. They probably shouldn't have won the game that they just won. However, players make plays, and you have to make plays to win games, like we said before. This is what I'll say. The main thing about Colorado last year wasn't necessarily the win-loss record, right? Because they were so terrible the year before, you can make an argument that they took incremental steps forward last year. The way that the team played towards the end of the year, where it didn't seem like they ever really found an identity, and it didn't seem like they ever really improved. There was nothing at the beginning of the year, nothing at the end of the year that they were really doing better than they were at the beginning of the year. You can make an argument that a team finding ways to win games is counter to that, like them winning against Colorado State, them winning the game that they won, that there's something to build on. However, now, what I would say is, you're right. They do play. They engage. They are a better second half team. They have pride in what it is that they're doing. They don't lay down. It just doesn't seem like they're that well constructed a football team. The next 3 weeks are going to really be crucial into judging how the program at Colorado will fare in the future. Not very many people think that there's a long-term track for Deion to be the coach there, but 3 weeks, they're coming off of a big win. They're coming off of, how are they going to play? Are they going to play with the team that has some kind of continuity, that has some kind of pride, that has some sort of identity? Or are you going to get some retreads of the Nebraska game? You won't be able to judge them throughout the entire, it's almost like, it's so weird, Bomani. It's like, you kind of got to judge them on vibes.
Yeah.
It's like, how does it feel?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because like, they're such a weirdly constructed team that they're going to lose to people they shouldn't lose to, and then they're going to beat people or be competitive in ways that they shouldn't be competitive. They literally have like 4 or 5 good players total. So you almost have to judge them on how things are feeling,
right?
And whether or not that's going to be recreatable in the long term in terms of Deion Sanders' career there.
Yo, I'm kind of okay with vibes being the standard for a program like Colorado, right? Like, hear me out on this. I contend there's 135 FBS programs at this point. There is literally one that plays for a national championship every year. That's Alabama.
Yeah.
They're the only ones where if it's not a national championship, it's a problem. Everybody else, when they got a chance.
You could argue Georgia's in there now.
Well, they're kind of there, right? Because they had a run. But generally speaking, for everybody else, if you like, hey, guys, I think we might have a chance at a national championship, that's good enough, right? The feeling that you might have a chance at Alabama is, so we go win a national championship this year or not, right? That's what the case has been there for 60-something years.
Sure.
Everybody else has their own little different standards of what is good, what's not good. Like I like to break it down by wins, right? Some schools are 9-win schools. Some schools are 8-win schools. Some schools are 7-win schools, right? Like you root for LSU, which is kind of a 9-win school that has a ceiling of being a 13-win school, but could also give you a 6-7, depending on how it goes, right? Colorado, outside of that little time period where they were like, yo, we hear that you live a hard scrabble life in Los Angeles and need to get far away from home. How'd you like to come to Colorado? And they was winning national championships, right? Hey, man, if the vibes are good, if you're happy with what's going on, if it's a little bit exciting, if you guys win 6, 7, 8 games a year, to me, for Colorado, if you keep your expectations in check, that's a win. Like, I don't know how they felt in the end about last season, but, I mean, it sounds like that was a fun season to be around. And as long as Deion don't come out here acting like a jerk, then everything's cool, because he definitely started the season in jerk mode with the way he was dealing with the reporters and everything else. But it's Colorado, baby. It's all about vibes, man. They just trying to get out here, smoke a little weed, be in the altitude, have a good time.
The thing with LSU or another team like that is that you have that 9-10 win expectation, but then every 3 years you get a feast. Every 3 or 4 years you get a feast. And when we feast at LSU, we feast. We feast like 2011, we feast like 2003, we feast like 2007, we feast like 2019. And everybody is still full off that feast for like 3 or 4 years, right? 3 or 4 years, up and down. We can remember, I can still turn on 2019 LSU and get the warm and fuzzies and know I was there when we were unbeatable. And it's not that not that long ago.
Right.
The thing is, will Deion and Colorado ever be able to feel the bellies of the fan base? Like, I don't think with as much attention as is on him and with the rhetoric and the bluster, that they're going to give full off 6 or 7 wins, because then it'll feel like it's just all dessert. Like, I don't think that's going to, I think if Deion went at it a different way, if he was a Dave Aranda type coach, you could deal with 8 wins and then every 3 years playing for the Big 12 or whatever. But with him, he wants to do things in such a big way. Like, it looks weird to have Lil Wayne performing for a 7-win team. You know, it looks weird to have The Rock on the sidelines for a team that's really not a player and doesn't play for championships and is not in there. He'd have to tone it down for that to be palatable to the people there and the national news media. And I don't think he's capable of that. So the question is, how good of a coach can he be? And the returns aren't good, but we still kind of don't know. Because in order for him to live up to what he's put out there, he's going to have them playing for conference championships at the very least.
Yeah, and I think part of it is I talked about this on the show before, but I think it's a very important thing. A big part of coaching is keeping spirits up when things don't go well. Like, that's a very, very important part of this. Like, when you're not having a great season, being able to keep people's eyes on, no, it's cool, we're building, we're going to get to this other thing, or like, no, this is beneath the standard. I understand what it is that you're saying, but you got to keep people going when it's down to buy yourself the patience that it takes to build the thing back up. Because, hey, Shadour's probably not going to be there next season. Travis Hunter is probably not going to be there next season. There ain't no other Shedeur Sanders on this team. There is not another Travis Hunter on there, and you're not going to find those guys in the transfer portal, because guys like that, when they transfer to where Travis Hunter's going to transfer to next year, the NFL, right? You're going to have to get on your high school recruiting horse, and you're going to have to go get one of those guys. And if you get those dudes, it's cool. But if you don't get those dudes, oh, boy. Like, next year, I think, is the one that's going to be the test, because from what I can tell, they're just not going to have the star power.
There's a kid that they just flipped. Looks like a corner that they flipped from, I can't remember, maybe Florida or one of those other schools, Texas or something like that. He's going to need a lot of those. This is what I would say. When you look at coaches that build staffs, when you're a fan of the team, you celebrate every hire. You don't just celebrate the recruits that you get in, right? Oh, we got this GM back from Ole Miss. We got this recruiting coordinator back from this person. We got this analyst. We got this, like the tendrils, the small parts, the little muscles of a very successful college football program. All of those things have to work for you to get success at the top. And the question is, are those people in place? That's always the thing. Like, how are things running there? Because the uniforms are crazy. They look great, right? Travis Hunter is spectacular. But who's in the back office? Who's in the front office? Who's doing the work right now for high school recruits now? They don't come from a fertile recruiting ground in Colorado. Who's doing the work in LA? Who's doing the work in Texas? Who's doing the work in Louisiana and Florida? Who's doing the work in the areas that people love and know Deion Sanders? Are there people there that are smart enough to say he played in Texas, he's from Florida? These are all the places that he might resonate with people, right? Let's go to some of these places and establish recruiting. Who recruits Texas for you? All of that stuff. Like, does that exist there? Do they know how to build it? And a lot of times with that, it takes a while for a coach to do that. But normally, when a coach is figuring that out, Mike Norvell lost for like 3 years at Florida State. But there was a faith in Mike Norvell and a patience with Mike Norvell, because he had done it at Memphis, and people felt like organizationally, he's not doing it right now, that organizationally he will be able to do it again. Deion brings so many eyes with him that the expectations get so crazy at the beginning that it actually works against them, because he doesn't have the opportunity to really put his head down and just work on the low without everyone paying attention to everything that they do on the field. And he needs some time just to build if he knows how to do it.
Yeah, and he needs his Frank Wilson, right? He needs his Ed Ogeron. He needs his Rodney Garner. For those who don't know, these names I'm throwing out here is the dude that gets dudes. There's a whole wing of these cats is the dude. What do you do? I get players. How do you do it? I get players.
Yeah. You're wondering, Leonard Fournette, who could have gone to any school in the galaxy, you wonder why he ends up at LSU. It's Frank Wilson. You wonder why LSU becomes DBU. That's Corey Raymond. You look at all of these guys, Bo Davis and all of these different guys. You look at these guys. These are the guys who you don't see, like at the press conferences and stuff, but they're making $1.52 million a year for doing what it is that they do. Those are the guys that really build programs. Some of them will go on to become head coaches. Some of them won't. Some of them, they'll be Hall of Famers in college football where they are doing what they're doing right now. And so it remains to be seen whether or not he had a couple of those guys last year and they're gone now. But it remains to be seen whether or not that's going to happen for Colorado. But it could.
The NFL is back, which means you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on a couple of players' stats and projections, and you're locked in. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks.
daily fantasy sports made easy.